All right, Jacob. Today is Michael Jordan's 59th birthday today. What do you think about this impact, him being 59 and moving on to 60 next year?
You know what I think? I think Michael Jordan is the best basketball player to ever grace the planet. I don't think he's changed the game as much as some of these more recent superstars have. But I mean, you talk to anyone any older than we are, and they'll talk about watching, Michael play when they were growing up. And I wish I could have gotten a little bit of him when I was growing up, but I'm not going to complain because I still got my guy Duncan.
Yeah, well, I think maybe moving forward at some point we should bring one of my friends in and discuss of who's the best in the NBA. We might have a whole 3 hour spiel about on that, but
Yeah, I'd love to. I'd love to bring said friend in and have a very heated debate on why Michael Jordan was a better basketball player.
well, welcome boys and girls to the Lone Brothers podcast, where today we talk about the Super Bowl recap from Super Bowl Sunday. We got some college football. Harbaugh stays home in Michigan. Some NBA and some basketball and some MLB. Just a little bit of absolutely everything today. But to start our show, clearly we are going to jump into talking about Super Bowl Sunday, where the Rams beat the Bengals 23-20 in a close game that was back and forth most of the night. Great halftime entertainment. Jacob probably didn't enjoy it that much. And
Hey,
from
I
what I
really I
saw,
really enjoyed the halftime show. Believe it or not.
oh wow. And from what I believe, I saw, I don't remember, it was like a couple days ago, that this was like the fifth most watched televised show in like 20 years or like something like that.
And you want to know
So,
why?
oh, tell me why, Jake. I
It's
can go guess.
it was the lack of a powerhouse being there. People don't like when teams win over and over again. Brady wasn't in it. We didn't have Mahomes or any of those big powerhouses. We had two teams who kind of weren't supposed to be there, but you could foresee being there. And you have people love Matt Stafford, people love Joe Burrow. I just kind of think people watch it because it's a nice little refresher.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's just a year that there was no one this year that like except Tom Brady. You have the Tom Brady haters are like, oh, no, Tom Brady's back, or Patrick Mahomes or Chiefs, or me and you are just like, we don't really like them. And then, granted, it's been a long time, but you've had those years with Big Ben, the Packers. I feel like there's always been a reason to like just dislike the teams, but like this is one of the years, and I'm pretty sure that's what it said. So I'm kind of curious what the other four above it were, if they were other Super Bowls or not. But like, anyways, this is just it was a great Super Bowl to watch. It was close, a good ending to an NFL playoff that's been an amazing ending to the playoffs. And like I said, this is the game that everybody wanted. And Jacob, you can take it away however you want.
I mean, I tweeted after the game. That game just came down to the Bengals not being able to block in the end. I mean, Burrow in the second half didn't have any time to throw the football, and their only successful play of the whole second half was because of a missed offensive pass interference. So without that, maybe they score on that possession, maybe they don't, but I mean, they just couldn't get anything going in the second half because they couldn't block. It really looked like after that big play and that pick that the game was kind of in their control, but they just couldn't get anything going on offense. And I mean, it's tough to win a game when your offense doesn't score in the second half after that big play.
Yeah, no, I agree. Like I said, the Bengals had 7 sacks allowed compared to the Rams 2. And at the beginning of the year, when the Bengals drafted Jamar Chase, everyone's like, "You're stupid! Like you didn't draft offensive lineman to protect Burrow," which in the long run helped them out to get where they're at, but killed them in the biggest game. That they and I've seen crazy stats for the past week since the Super Bowl happened of like the Bengals being like one of the worst, like rushed, QB rushes, sacks, QB pressures, and like all this stuff like that. Like in history, this team is like significantly one of the worst teams at blocking for the quarterback, which is also still very surprising because they made it to the Super Bowl.
Yeah, well, and I think I was actually looking at, like offensive line ratings, and I know that PFF I mean, they're kind of the best place to look just in terms of grading. And according to PFF, the Bengals had the 20th ranked offensive line, but that's because their line is actually they're better run blockers. Like you said, they can't block the pass for anything. So, I mean, they could get Mixon going. I mean, they ran the ball okay. I mean, not great, but I mean, okay enough on Sunday. But said they just can't pass block, and I mean, I saw a couple things, and it's kind of true. They made it to the Super Bowl because they drafted Jamar Chase, but they lost the Super Bowl because they didn't draft Penei Sewell. You know,
Yeah, no, and that's what I'm saying is that
they need both.
They got here, and they definitely got here. Jamar Chase is him and Burrow. Dude, I didn't realize this before. I was reading it before Super Bowl started that when Jamar Chase got drafted, he went to Joe Burrow's neighbor and asked him if he could buy his house so he could be neighbors next to Joe Burrow. Jamar Chase and Joe Burrow are neighbors.
Those two might play on the Bengals for 15 years together.
And that's the thing, like that connection and everything they have together since being at LSU is crazy. And it's just like I said, I think drafting Jamar Chase definitely got him there, but not having line. Clearly this year's draft, the Bengals' focus needs to be getting a line to block for Joe Burrow.
Yeah, or free agency. They can probably find some. I mean, I look at that Bengals team. Like I said, their defense isn't spectacular, but their defense was good enough. They shut down. They made Mahomes look like they made Mahomes look like a backup quarterback the second half of that AFC title game. They held Tennessee to 19 points. They held the Raiders to 17 points. I mean, their defense played really well all playoffs. Like I said, they weren't amazing, but I mean, they played quite well for most of the playoffs. And if they can just keep that defense together, and they're plenty fine on offense, they just can't block. So, I mean, and like I said, and that line doesn't need to be good. They weren't good this year, and Burrow went off, and the receivers went off, and Mixon had a great year. Like, if they just they just make an upgrade at a couple spots on the line. Like, I mean, I could easily see them being back in the Super Bowl. They just need to make a couple little. Yeah. Like, that roster is good enough. Like I said, they just need to block not a lot better, even just like a little bit better, and that game would have made a huge difference. They could have given up 4 sacks and probably won, and 4 sacks is still a lot in a game. They just can't give up 7.
Yeah, no, I agree with everything you're saying there. Honestly, and the biggest thing too about the Bengals is that I give a lot of credit to why the Rams won was Aaron Donald had himself a fourth quarter. That dude was everywhere. I think that first half they kind of shut Aaron Donald down. He didn't really do much at all. But that second half and especially the fourth quarter, there's some big plays. Also, we talk about this line. I'm sure everybody and you saw that on that last play, that fourth down that Joe Burrow got sacked on, Jamar Chase was wide open and torched Jalen Ramsey. And if Joe Burrow has 2 more seconds, he makes that throw, and we're probably talking about a different game right now. I don't know if you've seen that picture.
I have. I mean, it's one of those things where when they took the picture, Joe Burrow was already kind of falling down. So I mean, maybe Jalen Ramsey was doing something weird. But yeah, I mean, Chase had him burnt if he had a second or 2 more.
No, and that's what I'm saying. But besides all this, it was a very even game. Total yards were about dead even, passing, rushing. I mean, first downs are about the exact same plays. Literally, the time of possession was a difference of 50 seconds. This was a very even game that came down to the end. But my God, like I said from the start of the playoffs, I was more or less rooting for the Rams because my boy Matt Stafford won himself a Super Bowl, which rightfully so. I am so happy for that guy. Honestly, I'm happy for about everybody. Aaron Donald, who he came out and said if they won, he might end up retiring. They have some old vets on that team and stuff like that. OBJ's kind of getting older too now. I know he's still pretty good. I mean, before his injury, he was dominating that game. I'm just happy. I'm happy for Rams. If this exact same game happened next year, I'd be rooting for the Bengals for sure. But this year, Matt Stafford won himself a Super Bowl, and that's all I wanted.
And we talked about Aaron Donald, and remember how last week we talked, or 2 weeks ago we talked about how the Bengals. The Bengals' big second half adjustment of only bringing 3 against the Chiefs made the difference. what made the difference in the second half with the Rams defense was changing their scheme up front. So I'm sure you saw, if you were watching it and they kept showing replays, I mean, they were using their center all the time to chip, to double Donald on the passes. I mean, and that kept him under control. So what they started to do was they were starting to walk up 5 guys, and then they would overload a side, and they dropped someone off an edge. Like they dropped Von Miller back into coverage, and that left Aaron Donald one-on-one, and we saw when left one-on-one, no one could block him. So, I mean, the Rams made a great defensive adjustment going into the half to do a little bit of scheming things to get Aaron Donald some one-on-ones. Because, I mean, regardless of who he is, Aaron Donald's not going to get any sacks if he's getting double-teamed every play because you're just bringing 4 guys straight and the center's available to help. So they did a great job of taking away that center help. I mean, and you heard the announcer saying all game, they'd overload a side, but they'd also overload a side. And what they would do, I mean, and on a couple of those other sacks, what they would do is they'd overload a side, drop a guy on the backside, so they double Aaron Donald, or actually triple Aaron Donald on accident because they drop a guy, then they bring 3-on-2 on the back. So they did a really good job of scheming, and from what I've seen. Which, big props to defensive coordinator there for figuring that out. I mean, that stuff, regular dudes like me and you would never figure out in a million years.
I agree. And like I said, Aaron Donald's not going to – he's going to win a lot of one-on-one. I saw some crazy thing about defensive player, like efficiency or something like that in the past, 10 years. And, Aaron Donald's been, number 1 in, defense efficiency or, rushing the quarterback. I don't remember the stat is, and I feel – stupid for not knowing it, right? But ever since he's been drafted, he's been number 1 in this category for defensive efficiency, or I'm pretty sure that's what it is. Every single year since he's been drafted, which is nuts. That guy's a dude, and I think he was a big part to why they end up winning that game.
Yeah, I mean, you can make an argument that he probably should have gotten the MVP, but I mean, Kupp had a really good fourth quarter as well. So I mean, if either one of those two guys would have won MVP, I wouldn't have complained. And I'm not upset Kupp got it, but you can make a pretty solid argument that Aaron Donald maybe deserved it. But I also saw that they vote on the Super Bowl MVP before the 2-minute warning. So in the most important 2 minutes of the game, not even taken into consideration, which is kind of dumb.
Yeah, well, I don't know. Like I said, either way, if it was my vote, I would have voted for Cooper Kupp. I mean, that guy just had himself a game, and yeah, I don't know.
Made Eli Apple look foolish.
Honestly,
stupid Ohio State grad.
Yeah, he'll come back stronger. Minus the second half, the start of second half, I thought the Rams were in control most of that game. Minus, like I said, that missed pass interference call, which is a tough call for the refs to make or whatnot. I understand that. And then, a interception and whatnot. I even though it was a close game, I still feel like minus that third quarter, I feel like the Rams were in control of most of the game.
Yeah, I mean, they were in control, but they definitely weren't ever dominating at any point. I mean, I think they were up 14-3 at one point, I think, but I mean, the Bengals came back and scored the next possession, so it was never really a point where it got out of hand. I mean, I think the most in control I ever felt the team was. It really felt like the Bengals had control of that game. Like I said, at the beginning of the third quarter, when they went into the third quarter down, and within 45 seconds they were up and had the ball back. It was like, this game is starting to get out of hand. I mean, if they get a touchdown here, it's over. But you said, I mean, they had that essentially one lucky play. And then after that, like I said, they couldn't figure out how to deal with Aaron Donald because the scheme was so good. And the Bengals didn't have a single guy on on either side of the ball who could block him one-on-one.
Yeah, I know. And by the way, it was 13-3 because that whole botch.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Because Hecker just dropped the ball, which was, and that could have came into play on that last possession. I mean,
yeah. Field goal could have tied it.
Yeah, field goal could have tied it, as opposed to having to score a touchdown. So I mean that could. I mean, it didn't. So I mean, I can't believe a seasoned guy like Hecker would botch a snap like that in the Super Bowl. That's crazy to me. Because he's been doing it for 10 years, and he's great at his job.
Yeah, no, pressure happens. Mistakes are going to happen. You're not going to be perfect all the time. But, yeah, I don't know. Honestly, Aaron Donald and some big penalty calls on the Bengals in that final drive of the Rams killed them.
Yeah,
I mean, they gave the Rams a couple more plays, and honestly, what that one pass interference was third down or something, or second
yeah,
down.
I mean, it was third down when they called that real soft hold. I mean, and a lot of people are, like, well, they deserved it because, the refs missed that really big, that obvious, and people calling that an obvious offensive pass interference have never reffed a game in their lives. I mean, we have the benefit of three angles in slow-mo. Like, they showed that play one time, like, in live speed from, like, from I can't remember the angle, and I'm like, I wouldn't have been able to tell. Because, I mean, it just kind of looked like his helmet got snapped around a little bit and tripped. Like, live.
Yeah, no, that's
And the ref was 15 yards behind him because the refs are slow.
Well, that's the thing about. That's the one thing about refs and everyone complaining about it, stuff like that. It's like plays are gonna get missed, whatnot. People might be like, "Oh, that play is soft," and like I don't think the refs were at the time of thinking we're gonna do a makeup call here. Like, yeah,
it definitely wasn't like an intentional makeup call, but I mean, my biggest problem with that flag at the end of the game was they had been really consistent all game of kind of letting the ticky tack stuff go. I mean, like they missed one in the first quarter where Jalen Ramsey was clearly pulling on T. Higgins' jersey, and I don't really care that they didn't call that one. Like you'd like to see it, but not a big deal as long as they're not going to call it a game. And they hadn't been calling stuff like that all game, and then they decide with literally 2 plays left, because I mean, if the Rams don't get that third down and they fail on fourth down, I mean, the Bengals just win. So I mean, with essentially 2 plays left in the game, they decide to start officiating. Like I didn't like that part of it.
I have no problem with it. It's the moment of the game. We've seen game. It's reffing. Yeah, they might have been not calling little ticky tack stuff. I mean, at that time, that's what the ref called. That's part of the game. And like I said, we could little ticky tack when we can look back and say too. Like, I understand it was 15 yards back, but we could literally say that the reason why the Bengals took over that second half was because of a missed pass interference call. Yeah. That should have been called. I mean, I have no problem with either one of them. I'm fine with them not calling that.
Anyone who is out there blaming the refs as a Bengals fan is crazy. It doesn't. I mean, like I said, refs miss calls all the time. You kind of just have to deal with it. And I know if the Rams would have lost, that Rams Twitter would have been crying for years about how they missed that obvious offensive pass interference while they made it to a Super Bowl because of a botched pass interference call, which is hilarious.
Yeah, that's true. But like I said, I'm just happy for my man, Matthew Stafford, for winning a Super Bowl, which also brings me to a point that I think we'll move on from the Super Bowl. I think we've touched on it enough, is that there's been a lot of talk out there with Richard Sherman, your old boy from Seattle.
I love him.
What just started a lot of stuff about, is Matt Stafford a Hall of Famer? And with all his time in Detroit, his first year at the Rams, he comes out and wins a Super Bowl. I mean, Richard Sherman's argument is he's never been never been an All-Pro, or was it Pro Bowl, whichever one. I can't remember which one it was, but probably All-Pro.
It was both. He's never been All-Pro, and I think he's only been to maybe one Pro Bowl.
So, like, putting all these stats out there, like, he's not a Hall of Famer. Is he a Hall of Famer, Jacob?
Okay, so it depends. In my world, no, but at the current Hall of Fame standard, like, yes. I mean, I saw this year's class, I didn't recognize a single name. They let in like 10 dudes, and I didn't recognize a single guy on the Hall of Fame list this year. Like, they're like, as long as you were pretty good, they're kind of letting you in. So I mean, at the current Hall of Fame standards, I would say he is a Hall of Famer, but like in my world, I just don't really think that he is yet. I mean, he still has 6 years left. If he continues to play really well, maybe wins another Super Bowl. I mean, my big thing is I don't really give a crap about Pro Bowls because that's a popularity contest, but like All-Pro is a big thing. And if he's ever been an All-Pro, that means he's never been a top 3 player in his position ever in a single year, which that kind of says something, Like he never played on the level of for sure Hall of Famers like Brady, Breeze, Manning, any of those guys. And if you can't be one of the best in your position in any given year, I mean, can you really say that you should deserve to be a Hall of Famer? I mean, maybe not, but I mean, if he can sustain his stats, at his current pace, he could easily, if he plays long enough, be a top 2 or 3 in yards and touchdowns ever. And with the Super Bowl, I mean, I don't think he had to win a Super Bowl to justify his career, because I'm a big Matt Stafford defender, as you know. I mean, I say all the time that he's probably the most underrated player of our generation, but that doesn't make him a Hall of Famer yet. Yet, I think he could be, but as we sit right now, I'd say no.
I mean, we talked about this when we talked about that Barry Bonds not making it. My standards for Hall of Fame is very high. Like, I don't think there should be as much people in the Hall of Fame as there is. Baseball, NBA, NFL, no matter what you talk about. So yeah, in my standards of what I think Hall of Fame is, no, Matt Stafford should not be. But all the players that the Hall of Fame lets in and stuff like that for whatever to get in the Hall of Fame, yeah, I think he should. Because like that's just a thing, is that the Hall of Fame isn't I feel like, in my opinion, the Hall of Fame should be the best of the very best. In my opinion. Do I think that Matt Stafford is? No, I think since he won a Super Bowl, yeah, you can maybe start considering him more for it. Not saying you should, but like I looked at this up actually earlier today. There's 27 quarterbacks in like the Hall of Fame. And I read some of these dudes, I'm just like, how in the hell like are some of these dudes like I would put Matt Stafford over a lot of these dudes that are in, the Hall of Fame.
I mean, Stafford's already top 10 all time in yards. And he could have 6, 7, maybe like 8 seasons left to go. I mean, he's only 33 or 34.
Yeah, I know. Well, and for example, like, I mean, there's just like I said, and there's just a lot of quarterbacks out there in the Hall of Fame already. I'm just like, Matt Stafford's better. So if we're putting these quarterbacks in, I understand all pro, blah, 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 whatever. He's definitely better than, the rest of them, or some of them. I mean, you have someone like Jim Kelly, who was the Buffalo's quarterback when they made the 3 straight Super Bowls and lost. He never won an MVP or anything like that. Like, I highly doubt he even had that much. And for what I know right now, he actually Matt Stafford has more yards than him. But Jim Kelly, that's probably why he made it into the Hall of Fame. He led the Bills to 4 Super Bowls and lost all 4 of them. So,
honestly, that should immediately disqualify you from the Hall of Fame. Like, if you make 4 Super Bowls and you can't win one, that just means you're a choker.
Well, that's my point, is that, like, by NFL standards, Matt Stafford is a Hall of Famer. My standards, no, because I think a lot of these people that are in there, like you asked me, like, just quarterbacks, just like I said, there's 27 of them right now. If you ask me right now, clearly there'll be more. There should be, like, 5 quarterbacks that are in the Hall of Fame right now.
I would say guys like Dan Marino, John Elway, Joe Montana,
Peyton Manning,
like maybe Steve Young, but I don't really know if he was statistically that good.
I'm saying Peyton Manning, Joe Montana, John Elway, Dan Marino. I'd probably say Brett Favre.
Yeah, for sure, Brett Favre. I mean,
but those are
I think quarterbacks of our generation, the last 20 years, who deserve to be Hall of Famers, I'd say Manning, Brady, and probably Breeze. I definitely wouldn't have Roethlisberger, the other Manning, Phillip Rivers. I wouldn't have any of those guys in there.
Well, see, that's why the standards for the Hall of Fame, I feel like, need to be a lot higher, in my opinion, because we're just letting Ben Roethlisberger and Eli Manning.
For sure going to be a Hall of Famer, and he shouldn't be. And Manning, I don't know about him. He definitely shouldn't be, but he might. Like I said, just based on the standards. And mostly just because he beat Brady twice. I mean, statistically, he was kind of just another above-average quarterback.
Well, that's the thing. That's the only reason why Manning's getting considered is he beat Brady twice. And which is, yeah, impressive. But, like, that's the thing. From standards-wise, yes, I think Matt Stafford should be. I just don't understand that, like, in my opinion, there should be only 5, 6 quarterbacks right now in actually the Hall of Fame, and the rest of them should not. Like I said, it should. But the thing is, when these guys got inducted, when these players that played in 1957, then when they got inducted in, 80, they probably looking back and they probably were the best of the best. So I mean, I can't say much about it, but like,
I mean, that's why the Hall of Fame is about being great in your era and not really great, like of all time. Because eras are different.
Okay. I'm just saying that I understand you definitely can't do this, but it's like, I wish there's just some rule out there. He's like, you can be uninducted from the Hall of Fame. We will just take you out because clearly, as time moves on, you were not better than these guys. Like, I think we should just. I don't. That's my opinion.
Maybe we need
But
like a Hall of Fame for like the
yeah, I mean,
top echelon.
no, I mean that'd definitely be something. Because I mean, I went to the NFL Hall of Fame last year, and you see all these pictures, the gold statues or whatnot of their heads, and
Of
you
dudes
see
we've
all of
probably
them.
never heard of before.
Oh no, I can't keep it
Listen,
out.
I'm gonna pull up this year's Hall of Fame class, and I'm not kidding. I didn't recognize a single name, and I mean,
But
disclaimer: I'm not the biggest football follower like of all time, so like it wouldn't surprise me if some of these guys were all time greats, and I just didn't realize it. But like,
yeah, I know. Well, that's the thing. I think everyone in the Hall of Fame, there's probably 75% of them I actually don't know who they actually are.
okay, let's
And maybe
see.
that's just because I'm uncultured and I'm not the biggest NFL fan ever. But like, I don't know.
Yeah, I'm like I just wanna read like this list off and just okay. Here we are. Okay. This is as close to the list as I'm gonna find. Okay, Leroy Butler. That name sounds familiar, but I couldn't tell you what position he played.
No, me neither.
Bryant Young, same. Like the name sounds familiar, but I couldn't tell you what position he played. Sam Mills, definitely never heard of Sam Mills. Cliff Branch, not a clue. Richard Seymour, I do know Richard Seymour.
Well, you got to know that man, but for the Patriots.
Yeah, and I don't really know if he was a Hall of Famer or not. I mean, maybe. I mean, this article says he was a three-time first-team All-Pro and won 3 Super Bowls. So, I mean, maybe. Like I said, I mean, I didn't grow up. I grew up with him, but I didn't. I couldn't appreciate his greatest growing up. Art McNally, no idea. Tony Baselli, no idea, and then Dick Vermeil, no idea.
Yeah,
Okay, Leroy Butler, 4-time first-team All-Pro, one-time champion with the Packers in 1990. Okay, that's probably why I don't know who he is. Like Sam Mills, one-time All-Pro linebacker. With the 22nd most tackles in NFL history. Like, why is he in the Hall of Fame? Like, I mean, that's my problem with this. Is like, I just think the standards for the Hall of Fame are just getting a little too low.
no, and that's what I'm not in disagreement with you, Jacob. I just I don't know. Like I said, Matt Stafford, that's all I'm talking about now. Matt Stafford, yes, for NFL standards, he should be in. Because like I said too, who knows what would have happened if he wasn't playing for the Lions? He could have had a completely difficult career if he's been playing for the Rams or the Packers or something his whole life. We could be looking at him a lot different right now. But he played for the Lions most of his career.
Yeah, and
Which,
that we should take his stats and adjust them, by a certain factor, just because the play on the Lions was a curse. Granted, he got, in my opinion, if he would have played his whole career, maybe the best wide receiver ever. So I mean, and he definitely gets discredited for that, which I don't think is fair because outside of him, he had Eric Ebron. Like he didn't have any other talent on offense outside of Megatron all those years.
yeah, no, not really. That's for sure. But we better keep it going along here. So next thing, moving on. Whatever. Jake and I both think that Matt Stafford shouldn't be in the Hall of Fame, but by standards, he should be. But besides that, I think we should move on to the fact that Jim Harbaugh comes back to Michigan and signs an extension to stay with them through 2026. He was considered for the Vikings job. I feel like me and you both, maybe me especially, thought he was actually going to take that job. And didn't. Comes back to Michigan after a great season, leading them to the college football playoff. And I don't know, Jacob, you being the Michigan fan, I mean, do you enjoy? I'm assuming you're very happy of him coming back, but do you actually foresee him? I don't understand they extended him. Do you foresee him actually staying with Michigan through 2026, or do you think that was just more of a play to show that he's committed to Michigan until he leaves in 2-3 years to go back to the NFL.
I'm going to say yes, that he'll be around. I think if he was going to leave for the NFL, this was the year to do it, and I think he knew that. And from what I've seen with his talks with the athletic director, and granted, I mean, he's going to say this, but I mean, I think he's being pretty genuine when he told their athletic director that this was the year, and that that he'll be at Michigan as long as they want him. So, they worked out. I mean, he was already through contract through 2025, so the extension's only 1 year, but they gave him that 1 year extension, and they upped his base pay is now up to about $7.5 million. They cut it down to like 4 or 5 earlier, which was heavy in incentive. So this year he made a good chunk of money. I'm glad to have him back. I just wanted to throw this in here because I'm a Michigan guy. So I thought it was worth highlighting because of the massive roller coaster that's going on with Michigan coaching. Because Michigan almost lost all 3 of their coaches this year because their defensive coordinator is now the defensive coordinator for the Ravens. That's kind of funny because he borrowed him from John this year from the Ravens, and then John hired him back as the defensive coordinator after a year. So they had to find a new defensive coordinator. After this Harbaugh stuff went down, their offensive coordinator quit and went to go coach at Miami College with Cristobal. So now they had to find another offensive coordinator, and if they would have lost Harbaugh, they would have replaced all 3 of their major coaches in one cycle, which would have been a nightmare and probably a disaster. So I'm kind of glad at least Harbaugh's around to keep things moving in the right direction. Hopefully they can put together a good season next year.
Yeah, no, I don't know. I just don't think the Vikings were, and I know at the time I was just like, I think the Vikings are a good fit for him, whatever. I feel like Harbaugh, I could see him leaving in the next 2 years. I feel like if there's some job that looks very appealing, like say next year or something, the 49ers, I mean, who knows if the 49ers will hire him back, but like they fire the coach and, a very promising team. I feel like he's just looking, I think he'll get back in the NFL once an opportunity, like a great opportunity comes about for him. Like I said, the Vikings, I think they could have a chance. They're a good team. Definitely needed an offensive-minded guy to come in and start coaching. But I more or less, I think he'll leave once the opportunity's there. Will it be next year? I don't know. Will it be 2 years from now? I don't know. But I think once the opportunity arises where Harbaugh thinks it's the perfect situation for him, I think he will leave. For your sake as a Michigan fan, I hope he stays for you, Jacob, because he's definitely turned that program around. And I understand the first couple of years there, everyone's probably like, fire Harbaugh, we suck. We can't even beat Ohio State. And part of my thought is, hopefully Harbaugh, for my sake, doesn't do it, but hopefully for Michigan fans, he comes out and does the same thing for another 4, at least in the next 4 years, does it, twice, where he makes the college football playoff and, at least beats Ohio State 2 of the next 4 years.
Because I can ride the high from this year's playoffs for about 10 years, honestly.
No, and I'm sure you can too, and I'm sure a lot of people.
Not that I don't want to make it next year.
They've had a long time, but like, what I'm saying? Like, they beat Ohio State this year. I mean, that was the first time in a very long time. Like, well, I feel like Michigan fans and Michigan people are just like, we beat them last year. Like, it's turning around now. It's turning around. Like, we're going to start winning every single time, and I don't foresee that happening. I think it can be a more competitive rivalry now. I do think it will be. And I'm like I said, I'm an Ohio State fan, so I'm a little selfish, but like recruiting goes a little bit better our way lately, and that'll turn for Michigan once they, make the playoffs a couple more times, stuff like that. But I don't think it's going to be as dominant as, especially Harbaugh's there, where Ohio State will win 12 the next years. It might be like, 7 of the next 12 or something. It'll be split, but I think Ohio State will win most of them. But what I'm saying is that Harbaugh had one really good year. I hope that for him and Michigan fans, which I hate to say, they keep on having good years and they keep him, because he's a good coach there, and Michigan definitely needs to keep him as long as they can.
I would agree.
He's a Michigan guy, like you said. He's a Michigan guy. So
Michigan should always have a Michigan man at the helm, and he's a Michigan man.
And like you said, like I think that's the best coach right now. I don't know who else they could find that'd be better than Harbaugh there. And
Yeah, right now, no. I mean, if he was going to leave, if they could have gotten on the Brent Venables train, or I mean, there was a lot of good coaches available in December. Not anymore. So that would have been a nightmare. So I'm glad he's sticking around.
And the thing is, too, and if the college football playoff does change and they expand teams, Michigan would be one of those teams that could easily be considered every single year to get into the playoff. And if that's the case, as long as they're in the playoff every year, it'd be one of those things that he probably won't leave, because as long as he makes the playoffs every year as a Michigan coach, he's going to stay. So
make the playoffs, win a game or two here and there. And
for my sake, I hope Harbaugh sucks and absolutely just tanks the next 3 years. But for right now, I think he's a good coach, and Michigan should be happy that he's staying.
Agreed. I think this is probably a good point for us to move into some basketball, and I have a question for you. We discussed this for the podcast, but it was kind of funny because your today in sports is kind of a lead-in to my basketball question for you today. As Michael Jordan turns 59 today, what age do you think Michael Jordan would have to be for you to beat him in a game of one-on-one?
Oh, jeez. He's 59 right now.
And let's assume that you're going to stay the same age as he ages. Like you right now, what age would Michael Jordan have to be for you to beat him at a game of one-on-one?
And this is fair. Me staying the same age, that's a good point, because right now, I'm not going to lie, I haven't played a lot of basketball, but like I play intramurals the past couple of years. I feel like right now I am in my prime when it comes to basketball, which is definitely not saying like I'm really good at basketball. I am not, but I'm saying compared to when I was in high school, everyone, the early 22, 23, 24, that's like the prime for everybody of their athletic life. So I feel like I'm in my prime right now. If I stay in my prime like I am right now, geez, I don't know. I'd have to say 70. I think Michael Jordan would have to be 70. But I feel like 11 years from now, I feel like he'll still be able to shoot and score a lot, for sure. But I'd definitely be quicker and more athletic to just score and, whatever. I'd say 70. 70 would be my number. I was not expecting you to ask me that question.
I just saw someone said that on Twitter today. They're like, today Michael Jordan turns 59. What age do you think you would need to beat him at one-on-one? And he said, I think I could beat him 3 years after he died.
Like I said, right now, that man is still he's 60. And I like to think that I'm athletic enough to just be young. I'm that much younger and athletic that I could beat him. But man, I guarantee that dude, I could be up in his face at 59. I guarantee he's still hitting every shot in front of me.
And
so
he could probably still dunk.
And he could probably still dribble, and like I definitely would not be picking this man's pocket. See, at 70, I think he'd be slow enough for me to be like, all right, like.
I mean, honestly, I have no idea how good he is now. I would like to think that Michael Jordan go to the NBA today and average like 7 points a game.
Oh, I don't know about that.
I just like to think that. I have no idea if he would or not, but I just thought that was such a funny question because it's like, yeah, I wonder. Because it's like, I look at Bill Russell right now and I'm like, I could probably beat Bill Russell to game of basketball. Like, he's still 7 feet tall, but the dude can barely move.
Well, that's the thing. I feel like once he gets older, Michael Jordan can't. I'm sure at 70, he's clearly not shooting as well, but I guarantee that man can still shoot, but I think he'd just be slower and stuff like that. I don't know, what age are you saying? I think 70. I think 11 years from now, because I feel like 5 years from now, like Michael Jordan's still in pretty good shape right now, in my opinion, when I see him. And like I've seen videos of him shooting at his old age still and like still hitting shots every now and then on Twitter. I mean, what age are you saying? I don't know.
I mean, like, my big problem with him, with that is I would have to be significantly quicker than he is because I have to remember that he's 6'6". And
that is also true.
And I'm 5'11", so like the dude has 7 inches plus wingspan on me. So like unless I was significantly quicker, and he can still shoot over top me, so I also have to be stronger than him, so he can't just back me down close. So it's like I'm just trying to think of like at what point when I would be when I would literally just be like physically better than he is in terms of quickness and just strength. And like I said, like at least 70 for me, just because I'm smaller than you and not quite as fast. I think I'd say when Jordan was like 75, I could probably beat him in a game of one-on-one.
And see, I'm saying 70 as being like I'm just being cautious for myself. I truly believe I think it maybe be 65. Because I feel like in 6 years that guy's got it, like, whatever. But I'm just being cautious, just saying 70.
Like my biggest problem is just how big he is, and like they said, like I'm pretty sure like today he could still dunk, maybe not like easily dunk, but like I'm pretty sure he could definitely still like yam one down if he stretched and got warm.
Oh yeah.
So it's like if he can still get up to the rim, and like I used to be able to nick the bottom of the rim when I was in high school, and I can't jump as high as I used to. So like. I think I'd have to wait at least 10 to 15 years before I could probably beat him in a game of one-on-one. Because, like, if I played him today, I'd lose 11-0, no doubt.
Yeah, fair enough. I
Just because I'm so small, I'm 5'11", if that. Like, I don't want to take on the 6'6" goat.
I wouldn't argue with you there. But no, it was an interesting question.
Yeah, I thought it'd be a fun way to lead us into some basketball. But I can do my quick little college b-ball recap here.
Hit us with the college. What's happening in college basketball?
So I don't have any games to break down today because I haven't watched any in the last week or two. But I do have just some notable things for the people to keep track of. That's just happened since Monday. Tennessee took down Kentucky on Tuesday. That's its number 16, upsetting number 4. So that's a big win for Tennessee. That helped their seeding a lot. And, stinks for Kentucky to lose like that, a big 10-point, loss. We had a little bit of a mid-major matchup here with Villanova playing Providence on Tuesday as well. That's number 10 versus number 8. Villanova went into Providence's house and got the W. Penn State upset Michigan State on Tuesday as well. And on Tuesday was a big basketball day. New Mexico, who was under 500, took down number 22 Wyoming. So Wyoming's definitely going to be falling out of the polls after this week. We had Texas Tech completing the season sweep of Baylor after a 10-point home victory. They beat them earlier this year when Baylor was, I believe, number 1 or 2 or 3 on the road. I think Texas Tech is better than that seed. I've seen them play a couple times here, and they always compete. So, I got big hopes in Texas Tech. And then Rutgers, this is the biggest story on the college basketball subreddit, is the unranked Rutgers have now beat 4 straight ranked opponents in 4 straight games. There's no gap. They played 4 straight ranked teams. They beat them all after an 11-point victory over number 11 Illinois yesterday. So Rutgers might jump into the top 25 and be ranked like number 80 in like the fancy metrics ratings just because they've been beating all these ranked teams. The AP poll is going to give them some love. So that's pretty awesome. But that's kind of the main stuff that's happened this week. On top of just other bracketology stuff. But that's kind of the major results.
Melissa, I'm glad you're keeping me updated too, because with all this girls basketball coming to the end of it, I haven't really been keeping up with stuff. I've been watching a lot of film and stuff lately, so. Glad you can hit us with that recap and the fact that you did not totally crap on Bill Walton today.
Don't get me. I haven't heard him do a game.
No, you need to stop. You need to stop talking right now.
And I'm glad that the games I've watched haven't included Bill Walton doing. I'm doing the color because
we must not be watching Pac-12 games then. Because
I wanted to watch the UCLA Arizona rematch, but I didn't get a chance to watch that one, but.
Yeah, well, you don't come on here ever again crapping on my boy Bill Walton.
I will gladly hop on this podcast and slander Bill Walton any day of the week.
And I will always come out here and absolutely roast you about
Bill Walton. Bill Walton is to me like LeBron James is to Skip Bayless. I'm just here to slander him 24/7.
I can't. I'm more. I will always. I love them, my boy Bill Walton. If you ever just crap on that man, he's the love of my life when it comes to college basketball announcers and like commentators. Like, oh God, I love him so much. But, anyways, moving forward, thank you for telling us all about it. Hopefully next week, once my season's over, I'll stay more on topic, especially moving into March Madness coming in here. I'll hop on more about what's more or less going on. But moving forward now, we move into the MLB as our last topic. That the MLB, the National League, moves into the MLB completely is a universal DH going effect in 2022, meaning that every single team, every single game will have a DH. We'll no longer have pitcher comes out there and hits the ball and whatnot. And I'll talk about it after I hear what you think about this, James. I honestly don't know how. I feel this is one topic me and you haven't really actually talked. We've talked about a lot about sports between each other, but I feel this is not one we've actually fully talked about. So I'm kind of curious what you think about a universal DH.
I am a baseball traditionalist, so I liked when the pitchers had to hit. So I'm kind of disappointed to see this, but I understand why. It's not entertaining to watch pitchers hit bat 150 and strike out 80% of the time at the back end of the lineup, but pitchers who rake are so awesome. Because of the universal DH, we'll no longer have people like Bartolo Colon hitting their first home run at the age of 42 at 300 pounds. I still think Bartolo Colon hitting that home run might be like a top 5 MLB moment ever. That was awesome.
You're not wrong.
I love pitchers who rake. I'm kind of sad to see it go because I like to watch, pitchers like DeGrom can hit, Greinke could always hit, Carlos Zambrano. They used Carlos Zambrano as a pinch hitter a couple times back in his days with the Cubs. Like, I love these guys that can hit, the pitchers that can hit. I think it's kind of interesting. So I'm a little upset to see it go, but I'm not. That's not a hill I'm going to die on either. So it goes.
Out of all the pitchers you're saying who could hit, I can't believe the one person you didn't think of right away is Shohei Ohtani.
Well, I mean, he's still gonna hit though, because the DH is optional.
Yeah, I know what you're saying, but I'm just saying, out of all pitchers, I mean that man. Because think about the Angels. The good thing is that when they went, they played, especially with the DH, is that you can have him when he's pitching, and then you can throw another DH out there. It was probably better for them when they got in those situations, rather than clearly. I don't know what they. I don't know. I love it because, in my opinion, and this is why baseball's, I feel like, probably turning to this is the big thing, is that a lot of people nowadays are thinking that baseball is getting boring, and we're seeing a lot of home runs now, and I don't know, you have these players that are hitting bombs after bombs, and you have teams that just hit home runs. And for example, I'd say the Yankees. They're just a team that hit home runs. They have a lot of players that can hit bombs, but besides that, I don't think they do like the little things of just putting runners on bases. And you might disagree with me, and I'm not much one to know completely what's happening in the MLB and be all for it, but like I think MLB's goal right now is try to make it more viewable and make it more fun for the fans and people watching. And I think this is a way to do it, is to take out these pitchers take out the pitchers to hit and put just a DH out there all the time. So we have more hits in a game, more home runs, more runs being scored, and it just makes it more interesting. And I think it's a good move because as a person like me too, I love baseball. I love coaching. Coaching baseball is probably my favorite thing to do in the world. Out of coaching any sport, and I'm a big basketball guy, and I understand the game of basketball more than any other sport, but baseball is my favorite my favorite sport to coach. But watching it, man, the other thing me and you are different too. You're a big defensive guy. Like, I want to see a 1-0. I want to see a 1-0 game where it's almost a shutout, this and that. And I'm just like, I want to see I'm not like I want like a 12-10. I want like in baseball, I think in baseball it'd be like I want like a 6-4 game or 6-5. Like, I want to see runs scored, but then also defense comes into play. And I like this. I think it's a good move for the MLB because I think it's going to make it more interesting.
I think it is a good move for the MLB. Like I said, old timers like me are going to be, we're gonna miss the pitchers having to hit. So
old timers like you, let's hold up right there. Old timers like you're just a young buck who thinks like the old timers. Let's just clarify that right now.
Yeah, you said I'm a I'm a traditionalist, so like I didn't like when they made it so you couldn't step out of the batter's box and how they implemented the pitch timer because I don't like the idea of making them rush through the game. But I understand why it keeps the games going and the DH makes it a little more exciting. So like I said, I mean, other than me and a few other baseball watchers, I mean, no one wants to watch the pitcher go out there and then strike out 80% of the time, and then 10% of the time pop out, and then 10% of the time actually get a hit. You know.
Yeah, no, I know what you're saying. And here's the thing: there's been a lot of MLB stuff where they were like MLB's been changing a lot of stuff lately, and people just complain about it and this and that. And literally, I've agreed about everything that MLB's done, besides the fact, and it hasn't happened yet. If they ever go to, virtual umps like for strikes and balls,
They already do in the minor leagues.
I know they do in the minor leagues, and I feel like they're just slowly trying to prove that it's better. And we talked about this in Super Bowl. Reffing and umping, it's part of the game. Yeah, there might be a bad strike call or ball call, but that's just part of the game. That's part of what happens. And in my opinion, I don't think that should happen. Like that whole thing where it was last year, 2 years ago, that they made the whole shift rule where you can. I can't remember what the whole shift rule was about. I knew about it at the time, where like you almost can't like shift as much as you could, like 4 years ago. I don't know if you knew this actually. The whole shift rule in MLB. You know what I'm talking about?
I don't know a lot about it, but I mean, I think the shift is one thing that I don't like to see. I get why teams do it, but like it's just so. I mean, teams have some sort of a shift on for almost every hitter. There's nothing worse than a guy just hitting a rocket to what could have been a double turning into a ground ball into a ground out to the outfield. Like that is so frustrating to watch.
Yeah, no. From what I know is like there's some shift rule where teams couldn't shift they can still shift, but it's not like as bad as 4 years ago, where like literally you could put all 9 players on one side of the field, and like they made some rule or exception where you had to have three fielders actually in the dirt, and like you had to have a certain amount. I don't know what the hell actually the rule actually is, but in my opinion, yeah, I understand disliking because it takes away a lot of strategy for the game. But as a person who just wants to enjoy watching baseball more, more hits, more runs is more exciting for a guy like me. So that's the thing. I feel like most of the stuff MLB's trying to do is they're trying to quicken up the game, and they're trying to make it more interesting by more home runs, more home runs, more runs scored. That's what the MLB's trying to do, because MLB games last forever, and they're long, and I feel like shortening them up and making them higher scoring makes it more interesting for the people. And for me, as just a guy who just wants to enjoy watching baseball more, that's kind of what I want. Like I said, it's kind of weird to say that I love coaching baseball so much that I'm just saying we should change these rules. But the one rule I won't ever agree on is go to virtual umps.
I think we might be a year or two away from that, honestly.
And honestly, I feel like it's one of those things, kind of like the pass interference rule of the NFL. I feel like they try it 1 year, and then after that, the thing is that they go to virtual ump. You still have to have an ump behind home plate, make the call when it.
Yeah, it's actually super interesting because I didn't understand how it worked until like a month or two when I looked it up. And yeah, a home ump still stands there, and then like a computer says in an earpiece, they wear AirPods that's connected to the system, and then it goes strike, and then they call. I actually watched a video of some of the worst called strikes and balls from the system, and some of them are bad because I mean even a computer is going to make mistakes.
Yeah.
But like the ump can technically overrule the call if it's like super bad. Because I mean, like sometimes like like the machine would call a strike if like a ball bounced in front of the plate and then skipped across the strike zone.
Yeah.
Like in that situation, the ump can call a ball, but I mean, like for the most part, the umps just call whatever the machine tells them to, and only if it's like egregiously terrible do they change the call.
Well, we definitely transitioned to virtual umps pretty quickly there, but in general, I love the universal DH. I don't. Also, I think it makes it a lot simpler going into the World Series rather than you play in one side of the league, a pitcher has to hit, and then you go to the other side's DH. I just think it makes it that much easier that. Honestly, I don't think teams complain about this either. I don't think maybe I'm sure there's a coach or two or some people out there that complain, but I don't think there's a lot of teams out there that just like, oh darn, universal DH, like we can't throw whatever hitter we want out there to hit. Like I just don't think that's out there. Like I said, there's probably some definitely old timers in the MLB that are just like, oh man, pitchers should have to pitch because whatever, or pitchers should have to hit, not pitch. But I don't know. I love this, and I think it's a great move for the MLB for sure.
I would agree.
But well, I think that concludes our episode for today. I know we hit a lot of different topics throughout all sports. But I'd say thank you guys for listening. Next week, I'm trying to think here, Jacob. Actually, I have to go to regionals one day next week for girls basketball, so it might be another 1 weeker. Then after that, we might go back to 2 because next week Tuesday I'll have to go to regional girls basketball, so with my team. So it'll probably be another 1 week next week, and then we'll probably I assume maybe go back to 2 once I'm done coaching and all that stuff.
Yeah, works for me.
Like I said, do a 2-1. We'll probably do shorter, quicker episodes for you guys. It's probably more fun to listen to when we don't talk for 50 minutes. But like I said, thank you guys for listening, and we'll see you next week.